We're ready for the drawing. I just noticed that I forgot the pins on the base, so I don't know if I can do that in the exploded state. And let's see if we can go pin short. Will it drag in? That looks like it grabbed a little bit of everything. So be careful with those. Yeah, no, I grabbed everything. So I'm going to try and control Z. And we'll walk back out of this. But it brought everything in its created state, so at least that much is visible. All right, we'll try that again. So if you're in the open, and when all I did, well, no, everything blinks, so I'm going to try one more time. Okay, so even though it's not open active, it is active in memory. So we'll go concentric. And distance. So we made those 5 deep, so it should be, and that's still going to be the issue when we look at this guy. All right, so from here, let's. Well, that one was actually 16 millimeter, wasn't it? So let's go back into the mates, and I will lock the rotation. Should be able to double click. If I can see the distance. No. All right, we'll just edit the feature. And 8 will raise it up a little bit. The being 10 deep. All right, so the exploded view went away for the mate. Let's see if it stays. All right, well, a little easier, but we're not always going to have an exploded view to work from, and I don't know that that is the safest. So what we can do is hover the mouse over top of the part, hit tab, and if you want to bring it back, then it is shift tab on the keyboard. So tab, shift tab, tab, and a tab. All right, and then I would like to go ahead and open that one. We'll open up the pin, and instead of grabbing the edge for this mate reference, I'm just going to use the cylinder. And not tangency, we'll go concentric and any orientation. So when I drag in from the work area to the next one, it should snap. Okay, so it's there, it's just above it, and then if I hit tab, it's going to reverse. So if I let go, I let go of the control too soon. So let's try that again. I'll let go of the mouse button. Okay, so there's the lock rotation. It's fine. And then I would like one controlling the distance, so I'm going to make those coincident so that any of the changes I need to make will go into that one. So drag and drop. We'll click the lock rotation, hit OK, grab the top faces and make those coincident. Rotate around, and one more. Now this isn't going to be in the, there it goes. Got to wait for it to show the symbols. Lock the rotation, okay. So this isn't going to be participating in the explode because I just added them, so that goes to coincident. And we'll do the shift and tab in the general area, and shift and tab. So if there's nothing there, I think it just ignores it. So exploded view, and then we want to edit the feature. And we'll just go ahead and add those separately. I'm not going to try and add them to the spacing. And I could delete the spacing and add them all at the same time, but I don't think that's very going to be any advantage to that either. So, all right, make sure to save that. So now we have two chains, and we're ready to go into the drawing. So we've, let's see, I've used a couple different, so whichever drawing template you want to work with. I've kind of made two or three and I've lost track, so I'm going to have to do a little cleanup. So the slider, and we'll make sure all that looks good. The arrow over, show an exploded state, the isometric, and hidden lines removed. All right, so we put that in place, and then the choice is to Control C and Control V, which is going to duplicate the exploded view, and we have to check it, uncheck the show an exploded state, and we're at 1 to 5. It could probably be a little bit bigger than that, so if we go into the user defined, let's go to 1 to 3. So that doesn't look too bad. And if I had wanted to bring in just the isometric view not exploded, we can pick out of the view palette, and it's thinking about something. And once I can identify the isometric, I could have just drug it into the to the work area. All right, so if I had just created the bill of materials and not put those additional pins in, I would have probably caught it then. And there's a lot of error checking going on, and each iteration is look it over, see what is working and what needs to be improved. So I'm going to delete the column. We'll move that over, and then I can position. All right, so between the scaling, being able to create the table, if we'd use the other, so maybe I'll go find that. Let's do a properties. So I picked a format. So let's see my A landscape if I apply the changes. Nope, still not there. So we can go back into the properties, and since it did not show up, we'll browse. Get back over to my system file. So this is going to be the downside to having a few things over the drive, keeping track of where I put it. Okay, so the templates. It doesn't look like I'm going to get a preview there. So I guess it would help if I'd actually created that template on this computer. So anyway, we're going to stay with the A landscape, and we'll do a modification and start working on the templates next. All right, so the last thing we need to do here is, so there's a couple different ways, I guess the takeaway from all that is there's a couple different ways to point to the templates, but the biggest thing is keeping them organized. So I'm going to load all of the bill of materials items to the left. And that doesn't look too bad. There's a few things crossing over, maybe a little cleanup on that one. And everything else looks all right. Okay, so at this point you have to make the decision. Are we staying with the drawing package, or are we going with individual parts? If we're doing individual, I save this as the assembly drawing, and then I open up the next template, bring in the part, and repeat the process. So if I'm going for the multi-sheet drawing, now I can add the sheets. And the first part that we'll bring in, let's do the view palette. And ... I want the base. And pretty much the process is going to be to add the sheets. And especially with this, probably going to get close to what, 10 or 11 sheets here. And we'll apply that one. And that actually became the bottom view, so I don't know that that was really what I wanted. That will probably make it more confusing, not less confusing, so I can always delete that. And with that view highlighted, we'll go back into the drawing, pick the projected view, and it put it in, but not sure why it put it down there. Okay, so that was weird. I'm going to get rid of that one, and we'll come back and revisit that one. That was kind of strange. So if I do the projected view, at the very least, we'll bring in the isometric and get it positioned. All right, so next sheet, and we'll just try to use both of these, the model view and the view palette. So you'll kind of get to where you have one that you prefer. And so the driver pin. Now if we put more than, then that makes it maybe a little more confusing. So I do want to decide if it's worthwhile to have, to try and make use of those. So probably have to add some notes to further define which parts are which, and because the title block's really not going to help us out there. All right, so other than the scale, yeah, 2:1's not bad on that. And then we'll bring in the wheel. And the driver wheel. And while it's thinking, I want let's just go ahead to the top view. And we'll bring out the side view. And then an isometric view. and OK, and then position. And again, I'm trying to use this as a roadmap, as the geometry that when we go through the assembly, this would be the assembly order, or something close to it. Okay, and then the drive pin. Okay, so since the computer is still lagging, I'm going to go ahead and pause and finish out the sheets, and then we'll come back and start adding dimensions. Okay, so I went through and added the views. Notice that in getting a little button happy, I added extra views, so we'll just highlight that and delete it. And the scale looks okay for that one. We'll just go through the sheets and give them a once over. So that's a little on the small side. I don't know, 1:1 might be a little too big, well, especially for the isometric view. So if we go back to the custom scale, at the very least we'll do half scale for it. And that might be a good place to try the break view if don't run into any issues. And the pin, and that's already 2:1. And then the bridge looks pretty good. Okay, so on this view, I brought it in, but I don't really like the way it's aligned, so I'd like to look at it from the top. And then we have the ability to get all of the geometry in, so let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger, like the 2:1. And the isometric, again, maybe not so much 2:1. Use the custom scale, go back to 1:1. So that looks pretty good. There's nothing really, if in this case from this side that would help us. And then, again, that's a little bit on the large side. And so just view how easy it is to read. That's kind of what we're gauging on here. So if I move the front view up, and then let's jump back over to the arm, whichever one that was. And we'll zoom up a little bit and highlighting that view. And if I go into the brake, then I have a vertical brake. Those are the different styles. So the cut direction is the gap, the size, 10mm gap size. And then how do we want it to look? The wavy. So we can put those in as a brake view. And the side view can come in. It just opens up more space, kind of cleans up the view, and there's no geometry, and it gives us a chance to practice those. So we have the view, and we can place the second one and hit OK. All right, so for our dimensioning pass, pretty much going to do the same thing. We'll dimension a few of these, get a sense of how it's going to work, and then we'll come back from there. So the side view from the front and back, I can't think of any geometry that we need to have there. So looking back at this one, we'll go into the custom scale, make it a little bit smaller, 1:5. And then we have to decide, are we going to do baseline, ordinate. If I do ordinate, I'm pretty much going to do ordinate throughout the entire drawing package. I don't like shifting back and forth. So let's go ahead and set up for our dimensioning. We'll do the smart dimension, and we'll start adding a geometry. Okay, and then those are the dowel pin holes. Well, so let's make sure that those get highlighted. And I'm still in 2 decimal place, so probably want a little more tolerance than that. And then the overall. Okay, and then we can go back and start looking at the heights. So just doing something fairly simple like this, you can kind of see the advantage of what happens with the ordinate dimensions. So let's see, get back into the annotations. Let's go off that top view, millimeters, and then I'm not sure what that one grabbed. Oh, I didn't get the second line to it. Okay, now it kicked me out of the smart dimension, so I'll try that again. And with the radius fillets, I want to make sure that I'm getting the right line selected. So let's escape, and we'll move that out a little ways. All right, so for the geometry, for the radius, and because those were hole wizard, let's get rid of the second instance of that. All right, so those were the hole wizard, and so I go back and forth on the dowel symbols, you know, as far as being more or less useful in the drawing. So because of the hole wizard, we can go to the hole callout. It's going to be a little bit different, but it has both the quantity, the diameter, and the depth, where this one would be pretty much through. And we might be able to see that. So this might be one of those places that turning on the hidden lines visible would help, but really it's a matter of making sure that the symbol and the notation is consistent. So let's go through and reposition that a little bit closer. All right, and then we can focus on the side. So this is a little more maybe in depth than what I'm really expecting for the assignment, but we need to start working towards that process where you're looking at putting everything dimension-wise that you need to make this part. All right, so that can go out. And last one will be the radius, and don't like the directions, so we click on the handle, and that will reverse it. And make sure to save. Alright, so again, since the computer's not responding super fast, I'm going to go ahead and pause. We'll take a look at the overall dimensioning scheme. Anything that that comes up, we'll put into the next video.